What's going on, guys? This is Oliver, formerly from Response AI and now from trycomb.com, getseer.com, and running this channel. Listen, guys, I know I keep saying this, but again, it's been about 5 days since my last video and I've just got more subscribers and I just can't thank everyone enough. I really appreciate you. It's changed my life. And I just love making stuff online. So listen, guys, so today we're going to be talking about something really important, which is like customers canceling, basically. So customers canceling, customers churning. In SaaS, if a customer signs up and then cancels, it's called churn. So I know most of you will know that. But basically, today I'm going to be talking about how to engineer loyalty, get people engaged and stop people canceling, and how to actually build a software and design a software in a way that keeps people stuck to your product and therefore increases your likelihood of selling the company for a lot of money, right? If you have a tool that churns customers every month, so the average customer only stays for 2 months, that's a terrible lifetime value of the customer, right? And it means that you're not going to be able to sell for a lot of money, right? So the greatest tragedy in SaaS isn't losing a customer, it's realizing you could have kept them if only you'd paid attention sooner. Now, churn isn't a binary event where a customer sort of suddenly decides to leave. It's more like this sort of slow burning tail where they're just starting to get sick of the product, or the value of your product has drifted into obscurity. Now, for solo founders, retention isn't just a metric, it's like survival. So if we are building SaaS for ourselves, just me and you, we are building a SaaS for ourselves and we are building it alone, right? We might have a team member later on or a couple of team members come in. But Profitwell, there was a study that Profitwell did, great company. Basically, improving retention by 5% increases lifetime value by 25 to 95%. So if you can just keep 5% more customers, you make way more money because of the compound effect. But most founders treat churn as a sort of reactive fire drill. Like, oh, this guy's just cancelled. Like, let's just see what we can do to get him back on board. You can't do that, guys. You have to create a product that keeps people inside the app. Now, diagnosing the silent killers, right? So why customers really leave. Now, most post-mortems stop at surface level explanations. So too expensive, or, missing feature, switch to a competitor. These are symptoms, not root causes. So missing feature, like what does that mean? Like, what missing feature is it? You get no information from the client. To borrow a concept from Toyota's 5 Whys framework, you've got to try and drill deeper, right? Now, what I did with my old software Response before we exited it is I would actually, and it sounds crazy, I would actually pay people for offboarding calls. So I know this sounds ridiculous, but I would say, look, you've canceled my software. How about I give you $25 Amazon gift voucher or something like that, and we have a chat about why you canceled. It's totally okay that you canceled. I'm actually paying you to cancel. But you get on those calls. It might only be 15 minutes, and most people will see $25 or $50 for 15 minutes of time as a great deal, guys. And they're going to have a proper chat with you. And that's what I call post-mortem interviews, okay? If you don't have money for this, you can offer something better, or different. You can offer them a whole entire year for free on your tool, right? Just make sure that you understand the costs of that for your servers and stuff. So the 5 Whys framework from Toyota, why did they find it too expensive? They didn't perceive enough value, okay? Why didn't they perceive value? They never fully adopted the product. Why didn't they adopt it? Onboarding failed to align with their workflow. So you see how what was originally too expensive, when you go down the rabbit hole, you see that it's something much, much deeper and much more specific. Now, diagnosing the silent killers, again, an example, right? You've got a project management tool. It loses a customer who claims the UI is too cluttered. Digging into session recording, so I've recommended Hotjar and stuff like that, guys, in previous videos. The founder discovers the customer skipped onboarding and never learned about keyboard shortcuts, which would have saved them hours a week. So the real churn driver there, and the real reason they cancelled, is because they didn't discover something, and that sucks, guys. It's not like your product sucks. It's not like you are an idiot. It's literally that they didn't discover something that would have kept them. So the real churn driver here, friction in time to value, not the actual app itself. Your SaaS is probably fine. You care too much about it. You've worked really hard on it. It's probably fine. It's just that they're not finding their way, around the maze of your app. So Christensen's job's to be done. I talk about this all the time. Map the job your customer hired your product to do, right? So if a customer churns from a CRM, which is where, you keep customers and manage customers and get sales and stuff, was their job to organize contacts, which is just surface level, or was it to reduce anxiety about missing follow-ups, which is like an emotional thing? They want to be cool. They want to hit all their follow-ups. They want to get more sales. A worse UI, guys, in this case can still win, because something like Salesforce will constantly remind you to follow up. Whereas your cool looking, sexy CRM, it might look really good. It might be easy to use. It might be clever and AI driven. It's not going to, if it doesn't remind them of that, then it's not peeping that emotional level, and then they might leave, You've got to think about where the friction is between the user joining and the user getting the job done that they hired your software for. Now, I love Ernest Hemingway, man. Like, makes me emotional thinking about that guy. Like, what a cool guy. You got to read about his life if you have some time on his Wikipedia, or read For Whom the Bell Tolls, or some of his old books. Anyway, proactive, that was a nerd moment. Anyway, proactive engagement. So the Hemingway principle of grace under pressure. So reactive support tickets and exit surveys are the equivalent of slamming the barn door after the horse has bolted, right? So advanced retention requires anticipating dissatisfaction from the customer and how it feels for them and what the indicators are. Now, obviously, the exception to this is the paid post-mortem interview, which is great. Like, that always works, guys. I'm gonna say that if I say, look, you cancelled my software, why? Here's $50, and we can have a call for 10 minutes. It can even be on a mobile phone. It doesn't matter, like a cell phone. Anyway, this is for people who aren't going to do that, or if you don't have the money to do the post-mortems, that's absolutely fine. You can build what's called an at-risk early warning system. Now, if you're using like coding agents to do this, just ask the coding agent like Cursor or Lovable or whatever how to do this, right? And I'm going to make more videos, guys. I know everyone's been asking. I'm going to make more videos on how to actually code these SaaS products. So if you haven't subscribed yet, obviously subscribe and all that stuff. Anyway, build an at-risk early warning system. So track behavioral proxies for disengagement. So one that I use, guys, is on Superbase, which is how I, do my back end and how I manage all of my users. It tells you when they last signed in. And if a guy has not signed in for 6 days, that is bad news for me, because he's not using the product every day when my tool is designed to be used every day. And they are the ones that typically churn. So if you look at someone who's churned, they almost always haven't logged in 4 days, and you're like, oh, okay, or sometimes 2 weeks or 3 days or 5 weeks or 6 months. The whole point is that they're churning because they have not found the way to value. Now, you can track these proxies by just building systems for them, right? My very simple system is just to log into Superbase every day and filter by most recently signed in. You've got a few guys who've signed in today, and you're like, all right, don't bother them and until 3 days from now. And you've got the guys who haven't logged in since last Wednesday, 5 days ago or 10 days ago. You're like, oh, okay, that's a problem. So the next thing is that on your back end and on your servers, you can just have tick boxes. So I typically have a failure to complete the golden path action. So for Sia, which is my tool that scrapes Reddit for customers, within a day, if you haven't actually scraped your first scrape of Reddit, which is just the first thing that I get you to do when you sign up, I'm like, oh, you are in danger of churning because you haven't done the only real thing that the SaaS is built for, So failure to complete a golden path, and obviously decline in use in the amount of use. Then increased support ticket sentiment negativity. So I know that's a long one, but basically, are they just constantly bumping up support, and are they frustrated? Like, it's as simple as that. You can do customer support on Twitter. People will message me and say can you help me with this? And I'm like, yeah, of course, that's fine. And I know that person is at risk because they've asked me a question, that they've run into something that they need help with. They're not at risk at churn necessarily, but if I were to ignore that message, of course they're going to churn because they're not getting what they want. An example is a solo founder running an email analytics SaaS notices a customer hasn't logged in for 14 days. Now, instead of a generic "we miss you" email, this is about doing things that don't scale, right? They send a personalized Loom video walking through a new report template tailored to their customers' industry. But, I noticed that you're in e-commerce or whatever. This AOV breakdown helps similar stores, whatever it may be. So say if you are running a CRM, if someone is at risk of canceling, you should send them an email that says, oh, we've noticed that you've got 3 leads you haven't followed up with. It's these things, guys, that are tailored to the user. And remember, if we're solo founders, we have to do these boring things. It's okay. But eventually we can hire them out. If you build something cool, you don't have to do this anymore. But you see how we're going to save those leads because they feel like we care. Now, the Anti-Cancellation Playbook. When a cancellation request hits, most founders panic or offer these discounts, right? Like, oh yeah, 50% off. No. Top performers stay calm and they are curious as well. You cannot be emotional, guys. It is not this SaaS. It obviously SaaS feels like your baby. Okay. So when I build a SaaS, I'm really defensive of it, protective of it. I love it. But man, as I've grown and as I've gotten more and more customers into the thousands of customers now, I'm not scared of someone saying that the thing is bad. Like, oh, I hate this. I'm like, oh, why? Like, instead of going, oh, what do you mean? Like, that's not going to make any money, guys. Like, just got to grow up. Look, someone's not going to like your stuff, man. And that's absolutely fine. People comment on these videos. They hate them. I'm like, that's okay. You've got to tell me why. How could I provide more value? You've got to delete your ego, guys, because people are going to think your SaaS is shit, and that's fine. Now, acknowledge, don't argue. So it sounds like we haven't met your expectations. Would you share what fell short? Again, this is probably more likely to be answered on a post-mortem, especially if it's a paid post-mortem. And then diagnose the job to be done. So what were you hoping to achieve when you signed up? You know what they were hoping to achieve, or at least you expect to, because you built your app for a specific reason, like scraping Reddit or writing AI emails or, a CRM, whatever it may be. And then offer an off-ramp, not a plea. So if I solve X problem in the next 10 days, would you reconsider? If not, I'll process this immediately. So one thing is that it's not sleazy, guys, to, offer them these things before they cancel, because they might just be looking like, man, people just love attention. They might just be looking for like a bit of extra care, a bit of kissing and cuddling, like, oh, I need this. Oh, I need this so much. You're like, dude, like, what do you need help with, And it's totally okay to be like that. You can be like, man, this doesn't sound like a big problem, man, but you're blowing it up. You're going crazy. So what can we do to help? And it's gotten to the point. I've gotten on goddamn Zoom calls with the guy to share my screen and show him how to do the thing. And that's absolutely fine. Like, guys, you've got to get in the nitty gritty. I don't know why it's making me laugh so much, but some of the calls I've had, man, they crack me up. Guys like, I don't know how to do this. And it's like, it's a button, like in front of him that literally says like, press this to get started or whatever. Or like, what happened? A guy said, oh, my login's not working. And I said, can you send me the link to the login page? And he was trying to log in to some random website like Craigslist. I said, so you've made an account with us, which is getcia.com, and you're trying to log in with your credentials to Craigslist. And the dude was like, oh, I wasn't looking at that, because his tabs were like hidden, you couldn't see like the URL. I was like, what is going on, man? Like, what are you doing? Like, you get things, that is the weirdest, and you get stuff like that all the time. So listen, if a dude was trying to sign into Craigslist when he was, using my SaaS, you've got to wait. You've got to expect the worst, man. Like that was something wild. Now, a case study is when a customer canceled their subscription for Frontitude, which is a great company. They're like a UX copy company. So basically they help you like design the user experience or onboarding and stuff like that. The founder discovered they'd been using it for internal team documents. So the product basically, in other words, the product wasn't built for a specific use case that a customer was using it for. So instead of letting them go, they said, oh, give us a minute, right? He offered a 60% discount while also building that feature. The customer stayed, and then the feature became an upsell for like dozens more customers. Now, the problem is, guys, you can't have some guy go, oh, I'd love if your SaaS could, build me a house. And then you spend hours and hours, days and days, weeks and weeks trying to appease that one guy who's paying $20 a month. You've got to be serious about it. You've got to be concise. How many people have asked for this problem? How many people have asked for this feature to be built? How many people are complaining about it? Don't just bow down and go, okay, I'll build anything you want, because it's your SaaS, guys. It is your business and your livelihood, and it's your baby. So although Frontitude did a good thing here, it is likely, in fact, it is guaranteed that more people were asking for this collaborative style thing as a feature, because they weren't just going to drop their whole development roadmap to just appease some dude. You've got to be careful about what you say yes to. Now, product-led retention, I love this bit, right? Because it's about creating like a magic in your app that means that people are stuck to it. So the best retention strategy is a product that is so indispensable that leaving feels like self-sabotage. You'd actually be stupid to cancel the app, right? This isn't about dark patterns or like nastiness or like being sleazy. It's just about engineering this dependency. So let's say that you work for like a big insurance company. Every single document and every single transaction that's ever been made is on their Xero or their QuickBooks. How much dependency does that company have on Xero or QuickBooks? It has a lot, guys. So that is what dependency is. You are building a tool that people are dependent on. People can be dependent on it because of pricing. They can be dependent on it because of how much data they've had exported in or imported in or exported out. They can have a dependency on it. People depend on one of my tools because the AI is really good, and it I use OpenAI, like ChatGPT's API, to analyze stuff. And I seem to have built a decent one for one of my SaaS. So people go oh, I've tried other competitors, but this one's better. That is a form of dependency. If your thing is better, but that's hard to do, So, and I did that by pure luck. I'm not even that, I wasn't expecting that, but people just say that was the reason they stay. You've got to try and think of 100 reasons why they would stay and then engineer to bias those, So I made sure that the analysis was super perfect. I made sure that they are getting leads every day. And if they cancel, it stops. So that's one of those things. The aha moment multiplier. So identify the action that correlates most with long-term retention. So to unpack this, let's say that users who do X stay longer, right? So that is a really important thing to consider, guys. So users who invite 2 people to the workspace, to the SaaS, in 1 week have 90% retention at 6 months, as opposed to people who doesn't invite anyone, and they seem to churn in 2 weeks. So obviously what you're going to do, sorry, my neck hurts. What you're going to do is optimize for the actions that appear to, how do I explain this? Optimize for the actions that your most successful, longest time customers do all the time. Because if they're doing all of that all the time, then it's clear that is the reason they stay, So it's very simple, guys. If a guy uses a gym 6 times a week, and the gym can track that because you scan a barcode or whatever. On my gym in the UK, it's like a barcode that you scan, and they get told every single day, and it tells me at the end of the week, you've gone to the gym 5 times, right? And I'm like, oh shit, that's good, man. I'm trying to set myself up, and you're in this position where you have to see that I've gone to the gym 5 times, and I'm in no rush to cancel that subscription because I'm going all the time. And you'll see that I will still be a customer at that gym in 2 years because I go 5 times a week or 4 times a week. If someone goes once every 6 weeks, the likelihood that they cancel is exponential. It's unbelievable. They're so likely to cancel and so likely to hate what you've built that it's unreal. Identify those actions. So is it that they export things every day? Is it that they import stuff to the app every day? Is it that they invite teammates? Is it that they share things? Is it that they watch tutorials inside the app? So for example, I can see who has watched the tutorial, and they don't cancel as much, guys. They don't cancel as much inside my app if they watch the tutorial. It just doesn't happen because they are more educated on how the product works. Identify the action that correlates most with long-term retention, and then obsessively optimize for that. The other thing is, Embedding micro commitments. So borrowing from this amazing guy, Robert Cialdini. I strongly recommend Influence. It's probably not relevant to SaaS, but it's just about like why people do stuff, why people buy, why people marry each other, why people, are attracted to people. It's a really good book. And basically, small voluntary commitments. So like did that. They increase loyalty. So if I simply ask someone to give me a ride to the airport, subconsciously that person actually likes me way more now than they ever have. And it doesn't sound right because they've done something for me. They've done me a favor. But doing people favors and doing little commitments for people, buying them flowers or doing little things, that actually makes you like them more as well. So saving your first custom template or exporting your first data set or importing your first lead, and you are 23% likely to churn, for example. So app queues, saving your first template, it meant that their users were 23% less likely to churn. Invite a colleague to review the report. Social accountability. This was a study from about 2022, I think, reduces cancellations by 18%. Now, again, that makes sense, guys. Social accountability. So if you have colleagues reading a report inside the app, or you are responsible for leading a presentation at the end of the week based off of the data that my app gives you, you ain't going to cancel that, because it's social accountability. Building a culture of obsessive curiosity. So for solo founders, retention isn't a task. It's more like a sort of worldview. So every feature and support I just fell off my chair. Jesus. And pricing page must answer, does this help customers? I wish you could see the chair I'm sitting on. I'm sitting on I'm at home right now, babysitting my dog, and I'm sitting on my mother's makeup chair. So she's got this like stool, and I'm sat on top of it, and it's like rocking, man. It's crazy. So the Netflix principle. The best customer service is a product that doesn't ever need service, right? So in other words, allocate a fair chunk of your developer time to churn prevention. So for example, I have an email that goes out if they haven't logged in 3 days. It's just Supabase, and I use a backend. I use Supabase edge functions basically, and I'll talk about this in another video. All this means, guys, is that my server listens for when someone hasn't logged in a while, and it sends them an email. I use Resend for the email servers, and Resend just sends them an email and it says, "Oh, you haven't logged in a while. Like, what's going on?" And they go, "Oh, I've just been away," or something like that, or like, "Oh, I'm not interested." They might just say, "Your app sucks," and then you go, "Okay, that's why you haven't logged in." Like, okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, you can automate health scores. So, for example, in SEA, I know that you have to add keywords, and you have to add something else and something else and something else, and import something else. There's 5 things, and if they've only done two, I put 3 up. If they've only done 2, then they are likely to churn in like the first 2 days, man. Like the first 48 hours. Now, if they've done 4, I bump an email that says, like, you can be creative, guys. I bump an email after 7 days that says you've done 4 out of 5, but not the 5th. Why? Or like, do you need any help? Or like, what can we do? And this is just simple stuff, guys, but it really helps, it really helps to have that specific data. Proactive error prevention. So, for example, you can detect when things are misconfigured, or for example, if on getSEA.com, they've typed in random keywords, right? If an email gets sent and says, "Hi, Steve, we've got 0 leads for you," that email doesn't get sent. Instead, it is replaced by an automatic email that says, "We couldn't find any leads because your keywords, your keywords were like bogus. It might have been something spelt wrong, or it might have been like something like that." So when you have 0 leads, no one gets sent an email that says, "Congrats, you've got 0 leads," because that would just not make sense. Instead, they get an email sent that says, "You have no leads, and this is why." And that is the whole point of proactive sort of customer service. That means that they're not going to come to me and go, why haven't I got any leads? Because I've already told them their email has literally said you haven't got any leads because you've made a mistake, and that's okay, but here's how to rectify it. So proactive error prevention and health scores based off of activities done in the app. Now, churn autopsies. So for every cancellation, you could write a 3-sentence summary. What they said, again, this is more like post-mortem interviews. What we inferred from that, so what they say is not always what they mean because people are human and people don't say what they mean. Now, what we'll test. So, for example, if someone didn't complete all 5 of my steps on my SaaS, I just asked them, why didn't you do that? And they said, well, the button wasn't working. And I'm like, nah, the button was working. But what it means is I can't just go, oh, button was working fine. I go, okay, I understand. The button probably wasn't working. I know it was working. I know that I didn't build a broken button. But that means I'm still the sucker because that means they couldn't find their way around the app. If the button was broken, what does that mean? It could be broken on their specific Chrome browser. It could be broken on Safari. It could be broken on Firefox. Might not have even been broken. Maybe the app just got stuck or something. You see how all of these things are so important. And that's why, guys, you have to kill the ego. Like, maybe my app did break. I've spent 6 months designing it and I'm pretty good, but maybe it's broken in some places and that's fine. So after losing an example is after losing a customer who cited lack of time, this is hypothetical. The founder of a DevOps tool realized the real issue was too many manual configuration steps. So they did a one-click compliance preset, which reduced setup time from 3 hours to like 50 minutes. With SIA, for example, I'm using that a lot as an example because I'm trying to keep customers for a long time with one of my softwares. It's not that relevant to you guys. It's like a boring tool. But the point is that it was originally 3 different buttons that led you to 3 different places. And you filled in your website, you filled in your keywords, and then you filled in something else, a description about your business. And people were like, people hadn't completed all of them. So what I did is I put them all in one module in a step-by-step, almost like a form. So instead of having to go to 3 different places on the app, they instead clicked one button that said get started. It's like, get started. Like, it's like, it glows green, like, click me, And then when they click it, it goes through 3 steps instead of just go there, fucking go there, go there, go there. Instead, they're saying, click here, one thing, and then go step 1, step 2, step 3, and then the module closes, bit of confetti, and then now they've got what they needed, okay? So that's how you guys can engineer faster solutions to people's problems based off of how they use the app. Now, pricing, community, ethical lock-ins, things like that. So the most enduring SaaS companies that don't churn customers, they don't solve problems. It's cheesy, but they become like oxygen. So this isn't achieved through these sort of brute force contracts or sales tactics, but basically building a community and sort of these values and like an identity for your users. So, the pricing psychology. So an anchored upsell is basically like a retention weapon because one, it feels like they are paying you more. So again, back to the Robert Cialdini's like reciprocity principle and like giving and micro commitment. If I've asked you to sign up to something even better and bigger, you're probably going to stay with me for longer because I've upsold you and now you're like more committed. Now, borrowing from behavioral economics, anchor your pricing if you can to outcomes, not features. So a Gartner study from 2025, it found that companies using value metrics like price per API call or per campaign or per seat, they retain customers 2.3 times longer than those using flat rates. Okay. So in other words, if you have some kind of credit-based system, try and think about how you can charge them based off of anchoring to the value they get. So, for example, it costs more to get more leads from one of my SaaS tools, for example. So it's like, okay, I'm going to sign up for the bigger one because I want more leads, and that's kind of how the flywheel works. Calendly, they're worth billions. They do a per user pricing that scales with team growth, but as soon as they have you want to collect payments, it turns the tool from like just this thing like, I have to do meetings on this tool, to suddenly it's like a thing that makes you money. Like now they've got a feature that makes them money, and customers who enable collect payments churn 58% less because this is now another part of their life that is automated by the tool. And all it took was them to just say, look, you can also take payments on Calendly. would have taken their devs like a couple of weeks to do, you know? So probably. So for solo founders, if you're a CRM, for example, for recruiters, you could charge per candidate placed or something like that. Like, I'm not giving you examples, guys, but just have, no, as in I'm giving you examples, but you know, it's more about what you think and what you think your app will work for. Don't like kill yourself over this. It doesn't work for everyone. I've had softwares that it doesn't work like this, but I'm just talking to you guys about pricing psychology and how you can make it more attractive to just stick around your product, you know? This ties your success to theirs, creating a more sort of partnership narrative as opposed to like, I'm paying you, you're paying me, whatever. The Goldilocks tiering principle. So inspired by something called Monetizing Innovation by Madhavan Ramanujan, design your middle tier to be the obvious choice for 80% of customers, but then you can add a hook in your highest tier that customers can grow into. So the base, for example, will be essential for solo founders, XYZ. Middle is all the stuff that people actually want, which is fine. And then a premium is that you get some community or these custom things or more support or whatever, right? So Notion's $8 a month team plan is like the default. I think it's that still default for small companies, but their enterprise tier offers these like unlimited versions and things like that, dedicated customer architecture, whatever. By the time teams need it, or by the time teams want to switch from the product, all of these like essential things that they've grown into. So you're building features that they grow into as a customer. By the time the team needs it, like switching's really hard, man. Like they've got all these different things that they've like grown into, and you're just sort of in the case of like, I can't cancel now. So that's how you can ethically lock people into your tool. The other thing is like building a nation of super users. So when customers form relationships through your product, churning from the product is like seen as a bad thing, and that's crazy. So for example, I've got Instagram. I don't really go on it. There's no pictures of me on there. Maybe that's not a good example. LinkedIn is a better example. I don't use Instagram that much. LinkedIn, if I'm not on LinkedIn, like it's kind of like, why is he not on LinkedIn? Because you're in business and stuff like that. And it's a bit like, I don't know, you know, it's a bit sort of annoying and like a bit kind of performative, but you're in that position where, again, I'm not really on LinkedIn or do anything, but people say, why aren't you on there? And it's like, oh, well, you want me to be on there, which is just strange. So the Trojan horse network effect is turning your biggest users into micro influencers. So a cybersecurity software hosts a monthly threat intel exchange, right? So that's where customers share breach patterns and things like that, and where they've gone wrong. Participants get a trusted analyst badge on their profiles on some communities. So you can use School, you could use Podia, you could use Teachable, Learnable, whatever it may be. A Facebook group, guys, you know, Discord, Slack, all of these things. You can just get your user to go in there and sit there and just talk about the tool. And this is how like big companies like Figma and Cursor and stuff like that have built these amazing companies. Now, project management tool lets users publish templates to a marketplace, you know, and then top creators get featured in the newsletter. This happens with like stuff like Gumroad, people get their products featured, whatever it may be. And stuff like that. So this is how Beehive do it. They're like, oh, look at these top newsletters. You see how Beehive talking about the top newsletters, they are like, you know, making you want to be one of the top newsletters, and you're not going to cancel if you want to be like on top, you know? Now, forget customer success managers. As a solo founder, your goal is to engineer a system where customers teach each other, right? So again, that's the community model. So instead of sending new users, this is such an important tool, guys. Instead of sending new users to a help center, you could curate a library of peer-generated success blueprints. So find one of your best users who likes the tool and see, how are you using this? And just interview them and then pop it on the site. How Steve got 15 leads from my tool. How Phil is speeding up his development process with my AI coding tool. Pop them inside the help center or inside like the interviews tab or whatever. And that can be a video case study with these raw metrics, and people are just like, you're having a laugh and talking, you know? Now, HubSpot, crazy. HubSpot found that customers who engage with peer content, so in other words, other customers are talking about it, have a 44% higher retention rate at 12 months. So that's what's just so important, guys. Now, the win back equity offer, I won't talk about this too long, but it's something I wanted to put here for people who were like further along. when a high value customer churns, you can offer them like a stake in the company, right? So that's a bit crazy. You wouldn't do it for a $19 a month product. But if your tool is like $500 a month or $10,000 a month, you could say, we hate to lose you. If you're open to it, we'll give you 0.1% equity to keep your account active, right? It's crazy. I wouldn't recommend it right now, but like it got to a point with Response where some of our customers were worth, thousands. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe you could stay if we give you, like a share of the company. This is crazy. Like, don't go like giving pieces of your company to everyone. But let's say that you're a tool whose average price is $500 a month or $50 a month, and you've got a company who's giving you $2,000 a month, and then they go, oh, we're not happy. Man, you're going to do everything you can really to keep them, and offering them some small amount of equity, it might be the way to go. But just be careful with that, because you don't want to like not own your company, Now, the long game, retention as a spiritual practice. So the unscalable habit from Michael Siebel, do things that don't scale to learn why customers stay. So I'm talking about the, post-mortem interviews. You can handwrite notes of thank you to every customer who refers a friend. You can see patterns emerge, that help you scale. So like I said, X amount of people did this on the app and then they stayed. So people who log in every day stay. People who log in and click this button stay. Can use Hotjar for that, that kind of thing. And then the Kintsugi mindset, treat churn not as failure, but as a scar that makes your product stronger, because every lost customer is like a lesson in humility, right? Finally, the truth about churn, customers don't churn because they stop loving your product. They churn because they don't feel seen and they don't feel like the value, the speed to value, and what they're getting from the tool is enough. Now, Dharmesh Shah, HubSpot co-founder, said the best way to predict your future is to create it for your customers. So for the solo founder, this means your pricing page should say, we want you to succeed. Your community should be shouting like, you belong here and here's how you can succeed with us. And then your product should basically say like, we're helping you build this and we're helping you like win. And if you're not helping customers win, guys, then you're in a bad spot, So I hope that's been valuable, guys. I'm going to finish the video there. Any problems at all, just give me a shout, just drop a comment, and I'll speak to you soon, and take care, and God bless. Bye-bye.